welcome back to What the Hype, and check behind you, Pam, for any one-eyed ravens, because this week we'll be talking all about season 2 of Netflix's Wednesday. So it's just you and I here this week, and I know you, Laura, and I last discussed Wednesday on episode 53 of What the Hype. So if listeners need a primer before diving into season 2, definitely go and check that episode out. And this one will be filled with many a spoiler. So I just want to make sure that we say that off the top. But if you do need a primer, go check out the earlier episode where we recap season 1 and look ahead to season 2. And Pam, start right off the bat. I want to know what your initial thoughts were on season 2 of Wednesday.
Yeah, this season is in a lot of ways way more jam-packed than season 1 was. And I think part of that is a testament to how the show has been trying to expand the world, both with we have a lot of new characters, and I know we're going to get to some of those, but also there's so many more B plots this season. I feel like last season we really were mostly just following Wednesday because she was an outcast, but now that she's come back and she's kind of famous, it actually gives them a really good excuse to weave in a lot of these subplots that we probably wouldn't have seen. Like, you know, we have Bianca, who's a siren, and she's got her own thing going. The other Adamses are kind of involved in their own way as well. Enid is like come back completely transformed, and in addition to still wanting to be friends with Wednesday, she's also now part of the wolf pack, and so she's trying to fit in, and she has her own goals going. And it just feels like there's so much packed into every episode because they've really tried to expand on the world that we were introduced to in season 1. Did you kind of get that same vibe?
I did, and I would double down a little bit on what you were saying. I enjoy, at least through these first 4 episodes of season 2, how we get more of the Addams family, the emphasis being on family. They do something interesting in that they move Morticia and Gomez closer to Nevermore. So instead of them being back home, they are probably, a couple miles away from the campus of Nevermore. And as a result of that, you get to spend more time with them. Morticia is very early on in the season offered by Principal Dort to help to fundraise for the school. We get a sense that the school may be in a little bit of financial trouble after what happened at the end of season 1. So having her in closer proximity to Wednesday creates a lot of tension and a lot of interesting scenes that play out in these first couple of episodes. I thought in particular, speaking of the family, the Willow Hill scenes at the psychiatric ward with Fester were just awesome. You could tell that he was really in his element. And then, of course, Pugsley is the newest addition to the school itself, and spending time there with him. I know we're going to jump into kind of his story arc in this season and talk a little bit more about where his story might go. If I had to criticize, and this is getting into a little bit of spoiler territory, I think the one thing that I was kind of surprised about, we got 2 pretty big payoffs in these first 4 episodes. And actually we got one big payoff by the second episode. And that was the reveal of who Wednesday's stalker is. I thought they probably could have played that storyline out a little bit more, but that character actually becomes pretty integral to the story and assisting Wednesday throughout. And then the second piece of it was who was behind. I know we joked at the top of the episode about the one-eyed raven. all of these Raven attacks. We get that payoff too, uh, towards the tail end of episode 4. I was kind of surprised. I thought these were going to be maybe a bit more slow burns.
Yeah, I agree, particularly with regard to. I think that after they unveiled her stalker so quickly, especially because these were both points that were really hammered home in the trailers. I think that's probably why we were expecting the mystery to last a little bit longer. But particularly after Wednesday stalker reveals herself, I really thought that the rest of the season through part 2 was going to focus on unmasking who was the master of all of these ravens and who was behind the attack. So it really kind of makes you wonder if there's like a third mystery that we're not privy to, or if it is just that now the mystery is like whether she survives the incident at the insane asylum and how Wednesday takes her down, or if she's back to just trying to hunt down the Hyde, who also makes a huge reappearance in the first half of this season. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I almost don't know like which storyline they're really going to hone in on and have her tackle. You know what I mean? Because it feels
Totally.
like maybe they're all entwined, but then also they're all so separated right now.
Yeah, because you got that resolution to those two big plot points that we just talked about. And you're left at the end of episode 4 really wondering, as you said, about Wednesday's fate. Although, if you watch the preview, that follows not long thereafter. I forget, like, we live in this world now where you can't wait to find out. We can't wait till, was it September 6th to uh, figure out whether or not Wednesday is going to survive her fall from pretty much was the top of the insane asylum. But yeah, what are the other big storylines here that we are expecting to keep us interested? Honestly, like, they did do a great job of really building out some of these other family characters like Morticia, Gomez, Pugsley. We are introduced to Grandmama in this season, and there's a whole host of other characters which you mentioned earlier, which we can jump into. So the question becomes, with Wednesday kind of sidelined, who's going to take center stage here? Because presumably she's in a coma. And I don't know if it's any
Yeah, like,
indication how fast things move. Maybe she's out of that coma by the end of episode 5,
right.
but
But you're
I don't
right. Is
know.
it like, does Enid step up? And is that like, so that's the other thing too. Maybe we should just start there, because one of the other big driving factors here is that Wednesday has a vision that Enid is going to die and it's going to be her fault. And it feels like they're setting that up almost to be a self-fulfilling prophecy as a result of the fact that Tyler, or the Hyde, is now on the loose again. And when she first comes back into contact with him, he clearly still has a chip on his shoulder as a result of the fact that Enid is really the reason why he ended up getting caught in the first place in season 1. So did Wednesday just seal everyone's fate? And does Enid step up because Wednesday's out of commission and she wants to prove that she is still capable of helping out her friend? Does Pugsley step up and have his moment? They've kind of like made him the new outcast. He's really having trouble fitting in to Nevermore. And then, he's also resurrected this zombie that's getting stronger with every brain he eats. So I guess that's another like big bad that they've kind of thrown into the mix. It is really like making it hard to pinpoint how they're going to tie all of this up in just 4 more episodes, because there's a lot going on.
And it's worth noting that there is a season 3 coming, so perhaps some of this will bleed
Overlap.
in to
Yeah.
season 3. But let's talk about some of these new characters because there are quite a few of them. And wanted to start off with Steve Buscemi's character, Principal Dort. He is the new headmaster of Nevermore. We don't know a whole lot about him, but he does have this really strong desire to fundraise. And maybe it's not appropriate to call it a desire. We do actually hear him on the phone with somebody in the later episodes talking about the fundraising for the school. So it's clear that he is getting direction for somebody else. He's working for somebody else. Who that person is, that could be another mystery that is unveiled a little bit later on in this season. But he's very much about trying to bring back old school traditions and bring in money to this school because supposedly the state that it's been left in is not a financially viable one for the coming years ahead. What did you think of his character?
I thought he was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if he's good or bad yet. It kind of feels like they're setting him up to feel like he's sneaky enough to be a bad character, but it could also just be a huge red herring that's distracting us from like so many other things. Right now, like I think that the weirdest part about him really is that he is not only like hell-bent on, to your point about old school traditions, really kind of separating the Nevermore students from the normies, you know, like the outcasts from the normies, and also his obsession with getting Grandmama to come aboard, and knowing that the Adamses are a big part of like the Nevermore history. We kind of saw that they were a big part of what happened last season as well with the big mystery. It seems like it almost kind of feels like he's playing chess and he's trying to make sure all the key players are on the board and where he wants them to be. So I've got my eye on him. I don't know if you're suspicious or not, but
a little suspicious. He could just be a bit of a sleazebag.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure exactly how he fits into everything just yet, but I think that's what we're supposed to feel as listeners at this point. He does have a really cool talent in being able to shoot fire. I don't know what that classifies him as necessarily, but it's come in handy a few times.
Yeah, that scene where he's just shooting down the ravens is really fun.
Which, if you were suspicious of him early on as potentially being this avian that is, you know, causing chaos in and around the school, that likely cleared him of being, you know, on that suspect board. He does step in and do some damage to those ravens. Now, you mentioned Grandmama, also known as Hester Frump. She is Morticia's mother, and she's apparently got some money and is a big-time player in the cemetery business. Her and Morticia have an estranged relationship, which we learn quite a bit about in this first half of the season. A lot of it having to do with Morticia's sister, Ophelia Adams, and she has a kind of similar background to Wednesday from the standpoint of having the ability to see the future, right? Or to have these visions. And so there's a bit of history with Ophelia. We don't meet her in person this season, but she's been missing for, I believe they said 15 years at this point. And she did spend some time at Willow Hill. And Fester mentions that or that he tried to visit her previously there. And by the time he got there, she was gone. So there's a lot of mystery surrounding Morticia's sister and kind of how that relationship exists between Morticia and Grandmama. But Grandmama does seem to have a very good relationship with Wednesday. I think she's one of the only people that can get Wednesday to crack a smile.
That's a good observation.
I saw that in one of the episodes. I forget which one, but I think Wednesday very much enjoys the current dynamic between Grandmama and Morticia.
Yeah, and she plays it up too because she needs the files, right, on this the group of deceased people that she thinks is part of a clue, and later we realize that they actually never died. They were just being held underground as part of this Lois program, right? But she needs Grandmama to buy the cemetery where their remains are so that she can get access to the files. And it's funny that she knows like just how to get her to do it, and she does it at the expense of her mother, because she's like, oh, like if you do this, mom's gonna be so jealous that you think that I'm capable of taking after you and like taking on the family business that you've started. And sure enough, Morticia is just, I think Catherine Zeta-Jones does a great job of using facial expressions to really amp up a lot of what she's feeling. And yeah, her scenes have been some of my favorites, actually. I think she really shines this season.
And it's worth mentioning too that scene that Morticia has where she's dueling with Wednesday was very reminiscent, I think, of a scene between Gomez and Fester in one of the Addams Family movies. Yeah, there are just some really iconic moments that I think we as viewers benefited from because the family, again, is in such close proximity to Wednesday and Pugsley this year at Nevermore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of Pugsley, Wednesday's brother, you mentioned earlier, Pam, he's having a bit of trouble fitting in, although he's created quite the situation for himself because after hearing a bit of Nevermore lore, he accidentally rebirths a zombie who he ends up calling Slurp. And I think it's appropriate because Slurp likes to slurp a lot of people's brains and has been doing a pretty good job at regenerating throughout the course of the first half of this season. And lots of questions around this character and who ultimately they're going to become. And
Yeah.
what role will they play? You mentioned how it kind of creates, at least for right now, a second big bad. Is there maybe a redemption arc coming for this character at some point?
I think it's possible that he might be the key to unlocking part of the mystery that Wednesday is looking to solve, because it's very clear that he knows the oh my god, I forgot his name, the guy that the
Stonehurst.
dad, Stonehurst. Yeah, it's very clear he knows Stonehurst because right before he eats his brain, he says like, "Hello, old friend."
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible he might have some information on Stonehurst that might help her defeat his daughter, because now she's kind of gone crazy with power as a result of being experimented on herself. So that would be like my working theory there.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Augustus Stonehurst and his daughter and everything that was going on at Willow Hill. So Augustus, we learn, used to be a science teacher at Nevermore. He was a normie, right? He was, as far as we know, at least for right now, one of the only kind of human teachers that existed at the school. And he ends up becoming a patient at Willow Hill. And he has a daughter, which we learn about a little bit later on. This daughter, though, is an avian. She's the big mystery that we're chasing for the better part of 4 episodes. So his daughter, who presumably would also have been a normie, was somehow able to be taught these skills, right?
Well, she says that in the 4th episode. Because her dad was experimenting on these out, I think they're outcasts. That's what they call the Nevermore students, right? So he had basically they were presumed dead, and he was holding them in the bowels of the insane asylum so that he could run tests and learn more about where their powers come from. And then she said that he was basically able to like use his research to transfer powers to her. And so he was testing on his own daughter as well to see if like it was possible to regenerate that. And then she even says like, she has that, like, I think it's for comedic relief. She has that line where she goes, I volunteered though, so it wasn't child abuse or something like that. But yeah. I feel like it's all, it has to be all connected. Like Slurp, Stonehurst, obviously Judy and Stonehurst are connected because they're daughter and father, but there has to be more to Slurp than just,
Perhaps
some zombie that's eating brains.
We hear kind of that urban legend about Slurp, but I am thinking more and more that maybe Slurp was Stonehurst's first trial.
Possible.
And so that's why he refers to him before he eats his brain as an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot more here with all of these characters. Well, Augustus is not coming back, presumably, but Judy is still out there, and she was very much kind of undercover through most of those first couple of episodes. And honestly, a surprise to me. I did not see that one coming. I thought perhaps the avian was going to end up being the new music teacher. We're
Me
kind
too.
of led in that direction. We get a little bit of a red herring earlier on when Wednesday is chasing the cloaked avian and comes across actually both Dr. Fairburn as well as Isadora Capri, who is this new music teacher, and she happens to be out of breath. So you're led to believe that perhaps the avian is either one of them, but the truth is it's neither. So good job with writing there on the part of Tim Burton. But actually, we have a few more characters that we want to discuss. But first, we need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.